Kia ora tātou. Ko Julia aho ko kai whakahaere RNZTPM. It's my pleasure to give you the health and safety briefing before we kick off the proceedings tonight. In the event of a fire alarm, please make your way out of the auditorium using the aisle closest to you. Exit the building via the Aitken Street entrance and follow instructions from library staff or security. In the event of an earthquake, immediately assume the brace position by leaning forward in your seat, placing your head on your lap and your hands over the back of your head. Do not run outside, there may be falling debris. Once the shaking has stopped, please wait for instructions from library staff. This is one of the safest buildings in Wellington, so it is usually safer to remain inside. However, if the safety of the building is compromised, National Library staff will advise on the appropriate evacuation procedure. In the event of any other alert or emergency, please stay calm and await instructions from the library staff. If we are required to evacuate, there is an exit next to the lectern or through the doors that you entered in. Toilets are located right outside the auditorium and right again before the glass doors. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Darren Joseph, and he's going to begin with mihi whakatau.
Akati, tēnā koutou tātai. Ko te Māori e runga, ko te Māori rau, ko te Māori o tēnei tipua, ko te Māori o tēnei ariki, ko te Māori o tēnei matuiwi, ko te Māori o Ranginui e tū nei, ko te Māori o Papatuana koe takoto nei. Kia raihoranga tapuai o tāne tēnei te pō nau mai te ao, tihei Māori ora kia tātou e pai nei. Tuatai ake e tikana me mihi ki te mana whenua, ki te Aotearoa, I pepehātea ki tā koutou ngiri, ki Tamarau, ko te Aotearoa no runga I te rangi, te toki te tangatanga I te rā, taringa mango, ko te kete nge, ueha, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou e manaki mai nei I te whenua, e manaki mai nei I te tangata. Tēnā tātou. Kāti, nei anō te mihi a te paumuramura, he uru tēnei no mani potu whanoro, ko taku pōtai, e mihi ake nei kia koutou mai te poari o te paumuramura. Nō reira e tātou mā, ka nui rā te mihi, o tira e mihi ana ki te whānau, kua pai mai nei, I takatū mai nei, I tauranga moana, tēnā koutou. Mai rangi toto ki mau ao, e mihi ake ana, tauranga moana, tauranga tangata. Me kore ake ngā mihi karere kia koutou. Hei āwhina, hei tautoko I te tama o tauranga moana o ngai te rangi, ka tū, ka topa, ka haro a te pōnei, ka nui rā te mihi tēnā koutou. Kāti, e kua ana, e hari kua ana mātou, kei konei koutou ki te are mai, ki te whakarongo mai, ki tēnei o ngā uri o tauranga moana, ka tū a taihua poto nei. Koe nō rā ko tāku, e mihi ana ki te pauwhare nei, ki te puna mā tauranga o Aotearoa, e pupuri nei I te tiriti o Waitangi, me ngā hiti tohe, e tohe nei, ki tēnei mea te whare pī ki te kāwanatanga, ki au ki te pono, ki au ki te māramatanga. Kāti ka hoki. Kāti, koe nō rā tāku, e mihi ake ana a tēnā koutou, ka tira e tātou mā, ka nui rā te mihi. It is my pleasure to read my forward this evening. Willow didn't give me a hospital pass. She gave me a great opportunity. Dr. Willow Sainsbury, my co-chair, gave me the great opportunity to write the forward for Te Kahu Rolleston. And so I'd like to take some time. It'll take 7 minutes and 15 seconds to read out. So it won't be too much of a hoha. And I had the pleasure of working with Te Kahu this year. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā rā koutou tātou e hui nei, talofa lava, malo elelei, pulavanaka, greetings to everyone. Just under an hour on the Ōtaki Expressway, driving from our capital here at the head of the fish, lies a little taone hiding an amazing secret. It is released onto the streets after 3 o'clock Monday to Friday for 41 weeks of the year. Children, mokopuna and teenagers leave their kura when the bell rings and spill out onto the tiriti speaking Māori. bump into them together in the supermarket or across from Māori land, and it is te reo o ngā mātua tūpuna that you will hear, the language of our ancestors. Some towns in Aotearoa, New Zealand, have proclaimed that they thrive to be a bilingual town or city. Ōtaki Township and the Māori-speaking community just do it. Naturally, fluently, spontaneously. It is in Ōtaki where this year's Pānui speaker resides, Te Kahu Rolleston. He is a force of nature from Matakana of Ngaiterangi, a poet, storyteller, battle rap artist, educator, and pāpā. In Māori, we describe those Orasi schools as a whitiki o te ki, a binder of words, a kaiwhakaero i te kupu, a carver of words, a taniwha toi kupu, a taniwha of poetry, and of course, a kākā wahanui, a great orator that projects their voice, sees the audience, interacts with them, and most importantly, moves them in some way. In August of this year, I had the great fortune to see Te Kahu in action in Ōtaki at Te Poumuramura's inaugural Pōkai Tuhi program. A week of mentoring and professional upskilling for 8 Māori and Pasifika writers into schools and kura. This has been a drive of Te Poumuramura, as indicated by the strong uptake of visits to kura kaupapa Māori in our Writers in Schools program. We visited Te Kura Aiwi o Whakatupuranga Ruamano, a tribal immersion school where almost all students are Māori and speak Māori fluently. A goal once only a lofty dream of kaumātua from the 1970s that has come true 50 years later. I was seated behind Te Kahu as he spoke and could see the emotion of the taitamariki as they gazed at Te Kahu in the class at this taniwha battle poet as he performed. Keep in mind, the class is no stranger to Māori orality. Like Te Kahu, many would have been immersed in hearing pāo or extemporaneous ditties made up on the spot, or lengthy political whaikōrero with long chains of reasoning. Here was something different in their mother tongue, a te reo Māori rap, a rap in te reo rangatira. I had a front row seat for their unfiltered reactions. Te Kahu rapped out his pepeha and the children were stunned. He continued with linkages and the students were truly amazed. But then he creatively and rhythmically wove their school name and their class name into his rap in Māori. And an emotion appeared on their faces that I'd never seen before. It was pure joy blended with amazement and a smidge of pride with a very big dose of Māori humour. This left their collective waha agog and squeaking, whā. Tū te ihi, tū te wana, ka mau ke te wehi. He had them. Orality first, then Te Kahu delivered a fantastic workshop where the tamariki wrote and read aloud and performed a few lines of their own raps about their wawata, their dreams, and what attributes they wanted to see in their future generations. Their future descendants, like the kaumātua did 2 generations before. Te Kahu captured the importance and beauty of the spoken word to motivate them to dream, to write, to compose, to rhyme, and he encouraged them to read aloud, even the ones who were reluctant, and got them to listen to each other. It was raucous, it was raw, and the class was filled with mutual admiration, and of course, out the gate, wild shout-outs in Te Reo Māori. It was a celebration of Te Reo Māori as a living language in a Māori-speaking school, in a Māori-speaking community, and it was beautiful. Another school we visited, Ko Putaroa, a predominantly Pākehā school, just out of Levin, commented that normally when authors turn up, they have a bag of tricks, a box of books, or a guitar. When Te Kahu turned up a few weeks earlier, they were surprised. It was just him as he walked from his car, from his waka, into the school. They were even more surprised when the students of this English-speaking primary school were absolutely enchanted with his presentation and his workshop on spoken poetry. They were still singing his praises 2 weeks later. Such is the power of the bilingual poet. Te Pau Muramura firmly believes mā te Pānui e ora ake ai te tangata. Reading is a superpower that can transform us and make life better. In this year's Pānui, we pay homage to oracy and the spoken word as we grow our Māori and Pacifica storytellers and get them into our schools and kura. In previous Pānui, we acknowledged that readers and writers need each other. Readers and writers also need oracy. Oracy first. Oracy grows rich vocabularies, projects your voice, and like writing, uses metaphor, irony, and humor to touch the audience. It helps us think, it invites us to actively listen and to understand each other. Most importantly, it can move our heads and our hearts. More than ever, we need this in our citizen toolkit to clearly communicate in Aotearoa, New Zealand, e te kāwanatanga. Mā te whakaronga pīkari, mā te kōrero waha, mā te Pānui pārekareka, mā te tuhi kātu e ōrara wātua i Aotearoa. Through active listening, oracy, reading for pleasure, and writing of all genres, we will have a prosperous New Zealand. And so without further ado, tēnā rāpua e te pātaka I ringa kōrero e te kahu, he taonga te kupu kōrero. Please join with me to welcome te kahu to the stage.
Oh, I'm having a soak off the matua Darren's kōrero. Te awa wairoa ko ngā tika ko ngā tipango te kāpuau ki te tere hema. Kai rei rara o ngā tuhangaro. Kai o tumoi tai puanga o rāta. O ki whakaroto a puano taku haere. Wai, tamara wako kai huria. Rere tika tonu au ki hairini. Tu mai koe ko rangi nui, ko ngai tea hi ko ngā tihe. Tiro muri whenua ki wai maki, tiro runga maunga ki tau mata. Aire tika tonu au ki maunga tapu, rauna no taku haere ki roto wai tau, ko tahu whakatiki ko te whetu. Tu mai koutou ngā pūkenga. Kai mga taua ko tamapahore, ngā pāpaka e nei oranga tāua. Rere tika atu anō taku hae, ki hunga hunga toroa ki whareroa. Te wika i ngā ko tū kairangi peka tū au ki waikari. Kai rei rara koe tapu kino kau atu te moanaki matakana ko te rangi hauhiri ko koe rā. Kai o pure o rako, tū whiwhia, kai te kutaroa ko taua iti. Kai o Pānui mai noho rangi kai, rangi wai a te haka te tupe. Moi mai rā koro tūpai a, I raro I te maru o tō maunga. Titiro whakawaho au ki aku mautere. Ki mō titi, ki tūhua, tū mai koutou ngai tāu whao. Hoki piki anō au ki runga maua, hei whakamutu ngā mō e nei hairenga. Anei ko te moana o tauranga, kua tau mai nei e. Tēnā rā tātou kua huitahi mai raro I te maru o tēnei whare. Tēnā koe matua Darren, nā au te huarahi ki te wāhi ngaro I tuitui kia pai te haere o tēnei pō. Nā au hoki ngā mihi I tuku atu ki te mana whenua, nei rā au e tautoko ana I aua mihi I tuku nā e koe, tēnei e mihi atu ana. Tēnei e mihi kau atu ana ki taku whānau I hara mai I tawhiti, hara mai I tauranga moana. Nei ko taku māma, nei ko Uncle Bob, aku tamariki, taku hoa rangatira. Tēnei te mihi hoki kia koutou, I whakautu mai ki te karere I tuku nā atu e au. Koutou ko tai mai I raro I taku karanga. Ka tahi rā te mea miharo ko tēnā. Nei rā ko ngākau, nei rā ko aroha, nei rā ko mātou ko taku whānau e mihi kau atu ana ki a koutou katoa. I just want to start by acknowledging everybody who's here, in particular, my whānau, in particular, te marae o rongo mai. It's emotional seeing people here, seeing that the people have gathered. I can't get through everybody who I want to thank for being here tonight, but I just want to acknowledge everybody, and I want you to understand I'm extremely grateful. It's raining outside, it's cold, the world's horrible. Engari ko tai mai koutou. Nō reira nei rau e mihi atu ana ki a koutou. I also want to acknowledge those of you who are here, not because you know this fella called Te Kahu Rolleston that's about to talk a bunch of smack, but because you're a passionate reader or a writer and you've attended this kaupapa in the past by far more esteemed speakers. My tono to you, please, I know this isn't the conventional sort of kōrero that you might be used to, but please be open to the message within Te Pānui e rere atu nei. Try your hardest. I'm not here to talk about the sad state of literacy or how things have been for our people, our connection with it. I'm here to talk about the way that I know we can help our tamariki and our rangatahi to find joy in words and to nurture a healthy relationship with these kupu and the way that they can use them. And so for my first diversion from the program scheduling, last Friday, I was sitting at my whare, collecting myself, asking myself, why am I doing this? Why did you say yes? Hika, why did they ask you? It's their fault. And as I was there collecting myself, wondering why I was gonna be here, I heard at my front door. I went to the front door and the courier was standing there. Normally, they just throw the blooming package on the floor and walk away. But that time they didn't. I signed for it, I opened it, and this was there. 3 months ago, I went on a 1.5-week tour around Waikato and Kirikiriroa visiting schools. Part of that tour meant that I spent 2 days working at Berkeley School, 4 workshops a day with their tauira, workshops in the evening with their kaiako for professional development. At the end of my time there, it was the same as it normally is. There was tears and snot and everyone was emotional. But what wasn't the same was 3 months later when I received this.
And as I was thinking, what am I going to talk about? How am I going to open my kōrero? This arrived and I thought, you better listen to that. He tohu tēnā. And so I'm going to carry on with my speech, but first I'd like to read a couple of pieces from inside this puka puka. This book is called Words Are Words. A quote from one of the workshops I ran with the students there. While I was there, 3 classrooms full of students completed poems. They put them together in a collection and they printed their school's very own poetry collection. It would be remiss of me not to share some of their poetry this evening. Yeah, I heard that word when I used to work at council. And so the first poem I'd like to share, I'm just going to share a piece of each of them because some of them are quite long. The purpose of the workshop was to help these young people build a relationship with writing, build a connection with writing. For me, the most special part of my mahi is watching young people going from, I hate writing, to standing up and delivering their poem with the biggest smile and the puffed out kereru chest. And so this poem by Presley Murray, titled My Teacher. My teacher is a website, a giver of information. My teacher is a book. He opens the lesson with something fun. The sound of my teacher is his fingers pacing across guitar strings, making melody. My teacher makes me feel safe. His caring words create a barrier between me and the fear. I vote my teacher, Teacher of the Year. Round of applause. I'll just do 2 more before I carry on. There's so many amazing poems in here. If you get the chance, contact Berkeley School and ask them if you can buy your own copy. This next piece is titled R2D2 and C3PO. R2D2, in my house he's known as Aturitu he, kupu Māori tēnā. Ea Benji. Goes like this. R2D2 and C3PO, calculating the odds as they go, flying through different sectors, soaring high and low, taking down the empire with their Skywalker bro. The sound of C3PO is, oh dear, I bet C3PO smells like fear. I'll do one more and then we'll carry on. This last piece I'm gonna share is called The Seasons of My Hockey Stick. Obviously, this person is an extremely passionate hockey player. And they've written a verse for each season. I'm just gonna read 2. My stick is a cold winter storm, thunder crashing, trees cracking, a street full of panic and anger. Bang goes the ball like a horse must canter. In and out, puffing, coughing, spluttering, desperate to catch my breath. Ref blows the whistle. Now I have nothing left. My name is called, so I give over the ball. It seems I actually had no time at all. Can we please have a round of applause for Ene Kamari? I thought it's worth me sharing this because this is the result from the kaupapa that I'm about to talk through. It'll just be me talking about it if not. I'm often asked where people can find my published poetry. More often though, I'm asked, how do I teach a room or a hall or a gym filled with students to write beautiful poetry? That question is what has led to the contents of this book. This speech is going to be a summary of what's within the book, but if you have students who can't stand writing, if you have young people who hate to write, I encourage you, look closely at the second part of that book. I'm sure it'll be able to help in some way. The result of my time with people may often be meaningful pieces of poetry and writing. The funny part to me is that's never the focus. The objective for me is always to help people find a safe and enjoyable connection with words. I believe once a relationship is established, the other things will naturally follow. Many people have observed this papamahi that I'm about to explain, this workshop method, and have tried to recreate it in their own spaces. Hopefully, the kōrero that follows will help them to understand this Tukanga Ako as a whole, instead of just the excitement generated in any single activity within it. So to start, I want to invite you to come with me back to my school days. Te Rose, I wonder, does my crew look cool days, where all we dreamed of was fresh shoes and new paint, and every single problem was solved with a new day. Just take me back to when things seemed easier. Tawhiri's breeze blew breezier, our smiles were cheesier, our enjoyment wasn't poisoned by the noise in the media. Friday night doorstep missions, clothesline shopping and all that mischief. Since teens, the whole team had caught date tickets. Usually for nothing much, the cops was always tripping. Those packet of smokes in a box, four-way chippings, scuffles in the park after dark with your mates chilling, spray cans always clinking. No matter where it was we went, we were surrounded by a cloud of that aerosol scent. And it was Waiwai Express so we could paint the towns. Clubbers left, music stopped, but we stayed around. So much aerosol you would have thought we hated air. But we saw the bright lights ablaze and figured tagging straights and flares was the only way we'd ever get a poster with our names up there. So come with me back to these school days. I'm gonna share with you a series of stories from my school days, and then I'm gonna explain the way they impacted the way that I work with people today. The first story is called It's Just a Lie That's a Little Bit True. I haven't told my mum, but this story comes from her. Come with me back to a 7-year-old Kahu's time at Maryvale Primary School with my first ever teacher. Her name was Mrs. Claire. She was the kapahaka tutor, she was the composer, she was the guitar player, she was the te reo teacher, she was our actual normal teacher, she drove us to everything. She talked Māori to us at lunchtimes, and she wasn't Māori. And the impact this woman had on me is great. Throughout my life, I often reflect back to the time that I had with her as a primary school teacher. I've had many teachers in my life. She's the only one who's my friend on Facebook. And I think about the day, most of the time when Mrs. Claire would teach us something, I'll pick it up straight away. It was easy the way she taught things. But one day she was explaining this thing called a metaphor. It's not like we were focusing on a metaphor for class. We had just read a piece of poetry, and in passing, she told us what a metaphor was. It didn't sink in my brain, and I became frustrated, and she could see it, so she tried explaining it to me. She's just like, no, you'll get it. A metaphor is when you say something is something that's not. And so I'll be like, so my shoe is the window. She goes, how? I was like, I don't know, I'm just doing what you told me. And she kept trying, big-hearted human. She'd say, what if I told you a car is a waka? I said, a car is a waka. I didn't understand what was going on, but I looked around and I saw I was holding the class up. I hate to hold people up. That's something that goes against me. And so I pretended like I understood so the class could carry on going. I got home that same day, still frustrated, and I moaned to my mum. I said, do you know what a metaphor is? This teacher tried to explain it to me all day and I can't get it. And my mum, this next word, this is from the ancient dialect of Matakana Island. My mum said to me, oh, she said, oh, you know what a metaphor is? It's when someone tells a lie that's a little bit true. She didn't say lie, she said BS, but for the purposes of tonight, she said lie. At that moment, what my teacher was trying to tell me all day and what my mum just told me, it's like they met each other halfway and I arrived at a place of understanding. My mum had taught me everything I knew in my life before that. And so when she told me that, and I could couple it with the information that Mrs. Claire had given me, I understood. And that's one of the things that I always make sure to take whenever I'm working with young people. I have a way of explaining something. I have a way of telling something, but there are many, many, many ways that people could tell the same thing. And so I often invite other students to explain something that I've explained, other teachers. I would ask anyone to have a crack at it, or establishing a wānanga space. It's one of the key things I learned from Mrs. Clear. The next story is called, Why is it paru? And for this was an 11-year-old te kahu. Our teacher gave us an assignment. The assignment was to write a letter home as if we were an Anzac soldier. I thought, yeah, I get to be creative, get to be me. Woo. And so I got home that day. Mum was still at work, lit one of her candles on the cabinet. I needed the ambience. No, I needed the wax. I wanted the wax. I wanted to seal the letter, and I wanted to char my letter on top of the flame. And so as the candle was burning, I sat there and I wrote this letter. Standard letter. I misuse, how's everybody doing? The next parts weren't so standard. I started saying, they never told us in basic training we'll be fighting metal tipua that spit flames. Ping, ping, ting, ting. Oh no, the window's shattering. Oh me, oh my God, oh my. I think this is it. I'm gonna. And then I scribbled down the page like a soldier had died mid-sentence, and then miraculously managed to fold the letter up, seal it, and post it back to me. I was proud as there. I got to school the next day. My piece of paper looked like a tapu artifact or something. Look at this. Took it into class. All my mates were looking at it like, ooh, the brew, and oh, serious guy. And so I was pumped up. My mates had pumped me up. I was like, ooh, time to give it to the teacher. Went up to her desk, and they fire, here's my assignment. Big ass smile, bright eyes. She looked at my assignment, looked at me. I looked at her, looking at my assignment, looking at me. And she said, why is it paru? I had already built up a bit of resilience in my life by that time, so I said, it was burnt in the war. She didn't like that. She proceeded to tell me all the things that were wrong with it. If a soldier was at war, do you really think while the building was being bombed, they'd carry on writing? Do you really think they'd be scribbled down the page? Can the reader hear shing, shing, ping, ping, ting, ting? All of these things. That moment, I went from a person who loved creative writing, who loved creative language. Oh, I'm lucky, my koro, my uncle, orators. I'm able to sit there and listen to their kōrero. But at that point, it made me completely whakama to share any sort of creative writing. I didn't mind like normal classwork when you just had to write an answer to something sweet, easy as. There's only one right answer for that stuff. But when it came to creative writing and they told you be creative, and then they tell you, no, not like that, it had a big impact on me. Big impact on me. One of the things, if you read that book you get, these stories are much longer in there, but one of the things at that time that I often reflect on is the idea that kaiako didn't take the time, like not even a second, to consider my mana as a person. The whole class was there. Everyone was there. I was already peaking, thinking I was the man. It's a much higher fall, much greater fall when you're proud of something and you're told it's crap than when you're not proud of something and told it's crap. And for years, this impacted me to the point where I'll be in school, I'll do all the hard stuff, but as soon as I got to creative writing, I'll pretend I can't hear. I'm naughty now. All of a sudden, the fella Kahu that used to be good in class don't really care about what's going on. He's not paying attention. All of these things came from that moment. I started developing weird behaviors, like whenever a kaiako comes around the class, I'll lean forward over my paper so they couldn't see it. All of that sort of stuff. Yao, so they'll ground me instead of actually come and see what I'm doing with the creative writing. And this stayed with me. This stayed with me until I got into my 5th form English class. My English class at Tauranga Boys College, you can ask anybody who was around at that time, we burnt through English teachers so fast. One term, we had 4 English teachers. The deputy principal, a dean, and a PE teacher, and our other English teacher, all of them left us. They left Some of them left teaching completely. Some of them just went to other departments. And then we got this fire. And her job was to get us, kids who for the past 2 years have just been running amok, ruining teachers' lives pretty much. Her job was to get us to memorize a speech from Macbeth. Now, I don't know if you've read Macbeth, probably you have, but it was hard. We didn't understand what was going on. For many of us, it was our first time seeing language, anything like that. Is that even English, miss? And so what she did was she said, we'll put all this away. I'm gonna change what this task is asking for you to do. Everything she chucked away and she started going through the speech, sentence by sentence. She didn't say, this is what it means, remember it. She said, this is what this means. How would you say that? She allowed us to put these whakaaro, these thoughts, into our own words, and then she got us to get up and perform that. What that did was it helped us establish a connection and a relationship with this kōrero. None of us fell in love with the kōrero or walk around quoting it, but we all remember that moment. All of us still have a memory of this dagger flying down the hallway. I don't know why, but I have that memory. And it's because she connected that relationship and that connection between us and that piece of writing. She didn't worry about what the assignment was or what the task was. She made the task fit us. She didn't make us fit the task. It's another teaching that I take everywhere I go. Very soon, I'm going to get into explaining the actual method I do in these workshops. But right now, just the last time, I promise I'm going to divert from regularly scheduled programming. I'm going to invite someone up to the stage. This fella, 7 years ago, I was invited to go to a school at Lower Hutt and run some writing workshops. I got to meet this cool fella there. Since I met him, he's done so many amazing things. He's going to share with us a piece of poetry. He also has a gig on Saturday if any of you want to attend and watch his gig. One of my favorite memories of this human, though, is we were at this big Flash Writers Festival. We were on a panel of esteemed writers. You know, I'm talking like witty Himaira writers. And the panel turn got to us, and the bro stood up and he goes, I don't know about all of that, but I know you should all buy Te Tibble's poetry book. For me, that's an indication of what he is. He's driven by the kaupapa and the things that touch his ngākau. Can you please give a round of applause, tēnā, mihi mai kia Dallas.
Bottle to bottle, pen to the pad. Toast to the days and memories that we shared. Reminiscing lonely nights, my papa came and said that if I die tomorrow, it's up to you to take a stand. So you gotta be a man if you was my biological. It only seems logical that what I got, you got it too. Life is what you make it, make my dreams come true. Nothing's given, gotta take it just for you to make do. Since birth, I was cursed to be living on earth. At 18, juvenile, living out my mama's purse. To tell royalty that this thing just wouldn't work, cause it wouldn't be the last, cause it wouldn't be the first. I'm on a one-way ticket, I have nothing else to lose. And a place where alcohol and criminals ain't nothing new. But more money, more women, more murder fools. Life is like a cycle, lead the break it all, you follow through. Looking for a different route, searching for an avenue. Gang affiliations and the drugs is all I ever knew. Cause what started as a joke, then turned into a passion. I never thought I had this capability of rapping. Another day in paradise, just lounging and laughing with people who have doubts. But I knew that this would happen. Imagine you're living in the hood, fantastic. Living in the city where majority are damaged. It's time to reevaluate the causes of our actions, but I cannot complain. Making money is a habit, I gotta have it. Like crack to an addict, I gotta break free from the chains of the masses. If money makes the man, then the money you can have it. It don't mean nothing to me without family. Because in this life is full of stress. In the projects, you won't progress. Dear God, this world is a mess. Thank you.
One more round of applause. Ki taku taina. You're the man, my bro. Same as this book, it would be remiss of me to not invite somebody who's been through these workshops to come up and share if they're sitting right here in the front. Tēnā me ko atu ana kia koe, bro. Now, I promise no more diversions from regularly scheduled programming. This next part, I'm going to get into the actual method I use when I'm working with people. This is what people often ask me for when I'm traveling around the country, and so this is what I will share. The start, I have an overarching framework. Feels like I'm at council again. I have an overarching framework that I base all of my mahi in. It's not new. It's not hard to find examples within Te Ao Māori of this happening, from the idea of the kumara and its sweetness, the now cliched kōrero of the kumara and its sweetness, to things that are more closely associated to my whakapapa, like when Kino Moirua advised Apa Nui Ringamutu to be like Te Toka Tirikawa. And so for me, I'm from a moana. That's the environment I have the closest association with. Some of my earliest memories are going with my mum to different places to pick puppies. And that's where my framework comes from. When I reflect on learning to pick puppies, being a little kid, you don't learn to pick puppies. You learn, it's time to go, you better go get a towel and a shorts. You learn, you get the blooming towels that are already ripped because the seawater will ruin my good towels. You learn, these sort of shorts will help you float, those sort of shorts will help you sink. You learn tikanga, process and protocol around collecting these pipi. You start to build a relationship with their moana and collecting pipi before you get anywhere close to putting your hand in the water trying to get a pipi. My memories carry on to being on the beach because I wasn't old enough to swim in the water, to paddling around my mum, watching her pick pipis, seeing her pick pipis, copying the way she picked pipis, and eventually graduating to pipi picker and being able to pick them yourself. There was no point when my mum said, I'm about to teach you how to pick pipi. It wasn't one point. She established a relationship and a connection between me and my moana that meant by the time it was time for me to pick pipi, I know what tide to do it. I know what sort of weather to go at. I know, oh, don't go there. Our family had a raru with them ages ago. You go over there. I learned these things, all these different things that taught me something. And that's the same model I use. When I'm teaching young people, I imagine a metaphor's a pipi, a rhyme's a kina, some onomatopoeia, a power. I don't teach them that thing. I teach them the environment these things exist in, and I give them the tools that enable them to harvest these things themselves. And so that's what I'm going to talk us through. The first step, our tupuna, there's a reason a thing called a pōhiri managed to survive so long. The idea of meeting someone or something new and establishing those ties of relationships are crucial anytime you meet a new group of people. And so for me, when I walk into a space, at the start, nothing about what I'm saying has anything to do with the kaupapa that I'm there for. All I'm doing at the start is I'm establishing a relationship with these people. And I don't mean, all right, everyone say your pepeha, now we're all buddies. I don't believe that's the purpose of a pepeha, or that's what whakawhanaungatanga is. I get to know people. I ask questions like, if you had a superpower, any superpower, what would it be? Things that help me get to know the person I'm talking to. And so that's my first step, always, whakawhanaungatanga. As the step's happening, something I'm doing in the background myself is I'm observing the space. I'm observing, Are people engaged? Are people disengaged? Is there noise going on? Is it cold in here? Is it hot in here? What can I do to maintain the balance of this room so nothing's taken away from the learning experience for these people? You know, sometimes it'll be a construction thing right there going, and a teacher tries to teach a class, bro. You might as well teach them about construction. At least it's going on. And so for Noongatanga, always first, always. Step 2, I call the second step, here te taura tūwhiti. The point of the next step is I introduce our kaupapa, but I don't tell them a definition or anything like that. I introduce it and neutralize its scary effect. When a young person or a group of young people hear a word like metaphor, they start being, what's a metaphor? I haven't heard a word like that before. And so when I introduce a word like that, I neutralize it. I make a joke about it, or I tell a little story about it. I say, don't worry, metaphors are easy. It's just a big meta 3. And what I'm doing there, I'm not telling them what a metaphor is, but I'm neutralizing how scary it is. I'm taking it away. It's much easier to engage with something that's funny than it is to engage with something that you're scared of. I make it a joke. I make it laughable. Then they're able to move a bit closer to it. You know? The next step, third step I follow is here te taura haumaru. For me, this is making sure that every single one of the people in the space understand that the space is safe. When I was growing up, one of the things that always made me feel all right with being in the water picking pipi, as my mom said, oh, this is just shallow as nothing in this part of the Moana can kill you. And I like to reiterate that to these young people. I say, this is a safe space. Nothing that's gonna go on in the space is gonna hurt you. I promise, my job is to look after the space. If something goes bad in the space, it's my bad. It's nothing to do with any of you. I'm reassuring them that they're not gonna be wrong. There's no moment when I'm gonna say, no, you're wrong, get out, or shut up, stop talking. That's not my approach. Here te taura tūwhiti. In this step, if I notice someone's so sharp that they're jumping ahead, I'll give them extra things to do along this step. I don't want them to end up bored and start distracting the rest of the class and take away from the learning experience. The same as if I see someone struggling, I'll go and I'll change their task just a little bit so that it's more doable for them. When I do that, I'll make sure the rest of the class doesn't see that's happening. One, I want to look after the mana of these people. I don't want the rest of the class to know, he's being nicer to those fellas, he's changing it. And also, I don't want what's going on, to take away from the group's learning experience, because all of a sudden everyone's now looking over there, wondering what the teacher's saying, blah, 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 blah. I don't let any of that come into the learning space. The fourth step. I call this step, here te taura pūrākau. And this is when I get the group's thoughts or understanding about whatever our topic is. We'll be using metaphors for the example. And so I'll ask the room, who can tell me what a metaphor is? They've chucked their hands up. Whoever puts their hands up, even if the first answer is correct, I'll pick every single hand that's up. I'm trying to encourage a wānanga space. Even if someone's answer is completely here, nothing to do with it, I thank them, I acknowledge them, I mihi to them, I tell them that's not quite what I was looking for, but thank you very much for sharing. We carry on. I don't want them to feel bad, like, I got a wrong answer now, this whole thing. I don't want that sort of moment to happen. I know it can happen because I was the sort of person that would happen to often. And so I don't want that to happen in this space. I let them all share their own version of what they think a metaphor was, as well as allowing them to share and it to be a wānanga space. What I'm also doing, if you think back to the story about Mrs. Claire, I'm allowing them to hear what this thing, a metaphor, is from a bunch of different perspectives, not just from my perspective. They can hear it explained in more ways, it's more likely they're gonna understand it. Yes. And this final part, this is the part everyone always takes and tries to do, but they haven't done any of these earlier steps, so it ends up a shambles. This last part is called te pūrangi ahu. This last part is the game. Whatever it is, whatever part of creative writing we've been talking about through all these steps, making jokes about, laughing about, having a discussion about, this last step is a game. And so I explained to them, all right, now you all know what a metaphor is now, eh? They might agree, they might not. I tell them the story about my mum and Mrs. Clear. It's a lie that's a little bit true. And then I find something around the room that can help them understand what the blinking hell this fella's on about. There's always something with 4 legs. I don't know why, but here we go. I direct their attention to something with 4 legs. I say, how many legs does this got? I'm making sure they all agree it's got 4 legs. I say, yeah. Now, what else in this world has 4 legs? Students start saying all these things. They're saying, a horse, a dog, a truck, a donkey, all of these things that have 4 legs, leading them towards it. I asked them, does that donkey have anything in common with this table? And they're like, oh, it's both got 4 legs. Matua, the table's a donkey. Matua, the table's a cow because it's black and it's got 4 legs. Matua, the chair is a horse because it carries me through a long day of class. They start yelling all this stuff. To most people looking, what they're doing is yelling random things. But to me, they're yelling metaphors. They're just random metaphors about anything. And then I'll change it, the light. What else does something that a light does? And they'll start screaming, the sun, the stars, carries on and it carries on. We do it about everything in the room. Whatever I can find, I'll say, have another turn. I explain to them, all you're doing is finding a characteristic about something and finding something else that shares it in some sort of way. And so they start picking it up. They start growing their metaphors. And at that point, now, as the kaiako, I give them the topic, whatever the topic is, and I let them write metaphors about that topic to their heart's content. And after that, I get them to get up and share. Because every step of the way, they've been looked after, every step of the way, they've been reinforced. I've never got to the end of the workshop and people won't get up. Any of you who are kaiako in here who have been to my workshop, you would have seen it. They just get up. And at that point, it's almost like, yeah, they've graduated to the pipi pika and I can sit on the beach now. And that's the approach I take. I let them take it away. And so that's the exact method I use when I'm working with young people. Nothing about it says, all right, you're going to learn this. All right, I'm going to teach you that. Everything is working around something to help them establish a relationship with that thing and then allowing them to reach in and grab that thing at their own pace in their own time. Just like when Mum told me how to pick pippies. For the end of this kōrero, I just want to talk about some of the spaces that this papa mahi has been in. I had to literally write out 200 different spaces and I went like this. And the sort of spaces that it's been in and I want to share. The first one, about 10 years ago, I was asked to go to Ōtorohanga College. At that time, they had an extremely well-known pūkōrero called Rāhui Papa, teaching them about rangi aowhia. My job was to get them to write poems connecting them to that horrible event. And so I asked them, write down 5 things that hit you in the heart from Matua's kōrero. And then I proceeded to run this workshop with them. They wrote metaphors about all the different parts. And then we carried on. We got them to write a bunch of different creative sentences. But what happened there is 2 months later, I get a call to go back to that kura. They had invited the entire community of Ōtorohanga. The whole hall was packed full. I don't know if you know, but can't be too many people there, but the hall was packed. All of their whānau had come to listen to them deliver poems about the New Zealand land wars. And what happened at the end of that, I don't know if any of you know, but a girl called Leah Campbell came out and she had one of those big, huge, you know how back in the days, marais used to have those big ass butcher papers? She came out with one of these big ass butcher papers. She dropped it on the ground and rolled it across the entire floor. That was the start of the petition to teach the New Zealand land wars in Aotearoa. That moment. And so Leah Campbell, if you're watching on the video, tēnā koe tuahine. So many spaces this has been in. When I think of, I saw my mate Julia Whaipoti come in here. I don't know if she's still there, but she was at the office of the Children's Commission, and they were getting rangatahi's opinions and thoughts on things for rangatahi, the way things were. Thank you for trusting me, tuahine. She said, all right, these are the questions we have. She didn't give me any, you have to do it like this, here's the. And so I went into this group of rangatahi that I was working with, and we wrote poems about how they feel the world is for rangatahi. They use these metaphors to hide behind so they could speak their truths and tell exactly what it was they were going through. It's much easier to say something hard when it's a beautiful metaphor than it is to just say, ow. It's much easier. I think about other spaces, the time when the Bay of Plenty District Council reached out to me, and there was the panel going around the country about the state of mental health for rangatahi. The same process happened. Every single school I go to, it doesn't matter what the kaupapa is, it doesn't matter what the topic is, my process is the same. My job is to help them connect with whatever's going on through these kupu and to support them to do that. That's pretty much the end of my round for. Hang on, but before I pass it back over kia koe Willow, it's November 5th. It'll be more remiss of me to not acknowledge what happened on this day. And so to finish, I'm going to share a kōrero about parihaka. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou, koutou o te Aotearoa, koutou ngā uri o te raukura, koutou ngā waihotanga te whiti rawa koto. This is my understanding of parihaka. I'm lucky enough. Years and years ago when I was living in Kirikiriroa, I was invited to come and sit with some whaia from parihaka, and they just told us about it. And they said, now write us a poem. And so this is my kōrero about parihaka based on their stories. I'm not of parihaka whakapapa. Taranaki is not where my maunga stands. My maunga is mau ao. To be more specific, I'm from Te Moutere o Matakana. I state that because I'm a firm believer in decolonized methodology. I'd never try and speak for them. I speak on how I've personally learned from their examples and philosophies, the people of parihaka, the protectors of peace, the independence defenders, the ones who were able to do it without using weapons. Their form of passive-aggressive, active resistance and protest shall eternally be remembered, especially considering the sort of law changes being made these days which impede on our protesters. We must acknowledge the visionaries with sight. Te whiti the shine, tohu the sign, ngā rangatira tokorua, tohu kākahi rawa ko te whiti o rongo mai. You see, te whiti send men to plow, dig the lands up and mess with. Land surveyors with no intention or mention of violence and aggression. Not even as the people of parihaka that were plowing the lands up as a means of peaceful protest were being arrested, yet still. On November 5th, 1881, the invasion began. The invading squad invaded, waving guns, a stand was taken. Those soldiers were fired upon with shots of smiles. They were bombed with grenades of gracious love. They were welcomed and embraced with love. For these soldiers invading the space, there wasn't space enough. So the people of parihaka fell their own walls and made enough. How could you, as a soldier, roll in on a people offering all they have and still confiscate their stuff, touch the woman, pillage the village, and chop all the crops of the estate to dust? It took a matter of months, but it was done. Te whiti, tohu and their men were imprisoned. Still they preached, still they practiced non-violent resistance. And in 1883, some were allowed back. Proof the plan of a peaceful people of Parihaka had not failed. Yet in 1886, for simply holding a meeting again, Te Whiti was jailed. But by 1888, all who survived the turbulence of the times were allowed to return, which means, in the end, peace won over war. In the end, peace wins over all. With examples like Parihaka, why is it that we still haven't learned and we keep going to war? Tēnā rā tātou, nei rā te mihi atu kia koutou, ko huitahi mai nei raro I te maru o tēnei whare. Muri ora kia koutou, and I'd like to invite you up with it.
Kia ora tātou. I don't know what my superpower is, but I would happily settle right now for 1/10 of your superpower as an orator, as a speaker, captivating us all here today. Just amazing, Kahu. Thank you so much. Kia ora. Yeats said, education is not the filling of a bucket, but the lighting of a fire. Thank you, Kahu, for sharing your fire making, both metaphorically and literally with your waru letter. Nā mihi mai ohai e tau korero Aotearoa. Now, I'm really excited to give this to you. This comes from our staff team, Juliet, Sarah, Simi, and John, and Rachel. And I have to say, I'm really jealous. I happen to love Read NZ merchandise, but my 16-year-old says that's really dumb and it's merch. So I happen to love Read NZ merch. I've been calling for Pokai Tuhi sweaters. We had a Read NZ Te Moana-Nui-a-Kiwa mask during COVID. I proudly wear my Read NZ pin, but Juliet has warned me that this is a one-off, a one and only edition for you. So without further ado, this potai is for you. Thank you, Kahu, for such a moving and beautiful Pānui. Now, I've had the honor of being chair and part of this organization for 4 years. And I too, to borrow one of Kahu's metaphor, am a berry-filled keraru when I think of what Read NZ Te Moana-Nui-a-Kiwa has achieved. We have a board and a team culture that's amazing, if I do say so myself. We have a clear strategy with 4 goals: diversity and reach, championing readers' stories and the state of reading in New Zealand, Aotearoa, collaboration and innovation, and organizational performance and governance. We can't have one goal without the others. We are grassroots, relationship, and equity focus that helps us inspire and empower. But part of being splendiferous and needed means that this year we will over-deliver. And when I say over-deliver, by the end of the year, we'll have 353 school visits and tours completed under the auspices of Read NZ Te Moana-Nui-a-Kiwa. There are only 190 school days in the year. We're really grateful to Creative New Zealand, who funds 200 of these visits, and other donations from your memberships, and of course, James and Helena Brow. Thank you, James and Helena, that help us immensely. But to keep delivering at this level, we need all the help we can get. It's $50 to become a member. You knew this plug was coming, of our organization, or it's $400 to sponsor a writer's visit to a school or youth justice facility. If you are able to join us in whatever way you can, then please do. There's like a little card that looks like this. It's got a fancy QR code on it. That slipped into the publication you're about to receive. But if not, Sarah Dillon can assist you at the desk outside in the foyer to make this all happen. There are also drinks and nibbles in the foyer after this, so we hope you'll join us for that too. Now, talking of making things happen, behind the scenes and at the desk, Sarah Dillon, our communications and engagement manager, drives the organization and publication of tonight's Pānui. Sarah, thank you for all you have done. This is a feat to get here. So yeah, Sarah, wherever you are, thank you so much. Thank you also to Julia, our CEO extraordinaire, and all the team. Simi, responsible for those superhuman organization, being program manager and all those school visits. I know the level that we've achieved this year is due to the relationships that you've built with Kura, with all schools and with authors too. And finally, the sponsor of tonight's Pānui, who has been supporting the Pānui for much longer than I've been on the board. Luke Pearson, thank you for enabling the Pānuis to have liftoff and for time and time again coming to the party to celebrate the achievement of exceptional authors and the work of RNZ Te Moana-Nui-a-Kiwa. Thank you to everyone. Please join me in thanking sponsors. But the last thanks is again to Kahu for his gift, for his superpower of being able to create joy and safety within language, and for sharing it in the most awe-inspiring ways with us all. Thank you. I invite my co-chair and Dr. Darren Joseph to close with a karakia. Kia ora, everyone.
Akati kia ora tātou. I'm sorry to say te kahu, but I think you actually became a teacher. Even though you burned all those teachers, you've become a teacher e hoa. Kati kia ora mai tātou. E hoa, kua rangatira tō tātou whare, i a koe, i tō tū, i ngā toi kupu nei, me te kōrero a Dallas, tēnā kōrua, kati tēnā koutou. Ke mea te ake he karakia mā tātou, kei te mōhi o te whānui tia, ki roto taranaki whānui, unuhia i te tapu nui, kia wātea, kia māmā, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairua i te ara takatū. Koe ara e rongo, whakiiri a ke kirunga, kia wātea, aira e tātou mā, kua wātea, haupai marire kia tātou.
Yeah, excited.